everyone, welcome again. It's another expert interview with Labakita Marketing. I'm Samantha, and today I'm speaking to someone I've known for a long time. I'm going to speak to Doris. Doris, can you just do a quick introduction of who you are?
Well, yeah, nice to be here, Samantha. I'm Doris Herzl. I'm the Railway Marketing Manager in SKF. I've been in SKF for 20 plus years, working with different industries. And as mentioned before, nowadays, I'm very much focused on one industry only, which is a very important industry, the railway part, very much growing industry, sustainable industry. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about marketing in an industrial company.
Yes. So something that I think a lot of is I think it's marketing in those sorts of industries is often overlooked or thought of as not important. I don't know how many times I was called the brochure department working client side in those industries, but it makes a huge difference. It isn't just consumer companies that marketing is so integral to. It is industrial companies, and yeah, I guess your view would be the same.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things when I kind of started this job was my manager told me, well, I want you to do marketing. Don't think about brochures. And I was like, oh, yes, finally somebody understands that marketing can do a lot more than just providing brochures. And when it comes to industrial companies, I mean, we are facing similar issues than B2C companies, because our customers also need to understand what's the difference.
Yes.
And I mean, that's where I come in to actually help my colleagues, of course, and the company to really build up on how do we differentiate between all our competitors and companies on the market, especially when it comes to technical communication. I mean, a lot of times it's a really particular lingo, and it gets really confusing for the customers. If you are not an expert, I mean, how do you actually even understand what we are offering compared to what other companies are offering?
Yes. And that's precisely why my tagline is making your complex simple, because that's what you have to do in those. And even if the end customer is really technical, they're bombarded with so many messages every day. You've got to get their attention before you start bombarding them with all the real technical details.
Yeah, and also what is it that they actually need? I mean, one thing is the part of, yeah, okay, we are a technical company. How much technique do you, or how much engineering do you actually need? Is it something that is important for your needs? Or where would we come in? So I'm talking now about the company I'm working for. I mean, we are a market leader in parts of the railway industry. And it's like, maybe it's in these parts we're also needed, while maybe in other parts it's not 100% necessary. So there again, where do you focus on? It's also a part that I find very interesting. So technical is not always the same things. Engineering is not the same thing. So focus is an important part, I would say, where marketing can very much help because of understanding the customer. It all comes from the customer. That's a little bit, you know, engineers tend to forget in their thinking about the beauty of engineering that, well, maybe the customer doesn't need it so engineered.
Yes, absolutely. It's all about understanding what the customer's actual needs and wants and desires are.
And are willing to pay for.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I guess I think a lot of people, and maybe some of the people watching this, think of marketing as sort of marketing communications, think of that as marketing, but actually it's you know, the traditional 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion, and promotion's part of it, and that is, it should all feed into it, and as marketers we need to, it's our job to understand the customer, to learn all about the customer and their needs, and therefore what's actually important in terms of, yeah, all those 4 Ps, not just the promotion.
And I would go even one step further, Samantha. I would also bring in another P, which is the positioning. What is it actually that we want to be seen at our customers? Coming back to, are we the right match for you? And how can we work on that? For me as a marketeer, it's a really important topic to think about all the positioning of us as a brand, and for us as in the different product lines.
Yes, because you don't necessarily, quite often when a product person used to come to me, I'd say, so who are you targeting? Who is this going to be useful to? And they go, everyone. And that's not the case. You don't necessarily need or want every single, and it's impossible anyway. You're not going to get the 100% of the market. That's not going to happen. But who do you fit best? And who do you want to fit best? I guess it's a mix of those two.
Exactly. Again, it comes back to who's willing to pay for what you're doing. And then it has to match. It has to match of what you offer and also how you're seen.
Yes. Yes, and you don't want to get stuck. And I know a lot of industrial companies that overlook marketing end up in that sort of downward spiral. They're just competing on price, not brand, because they think brand isn't important, and it really is. It makes a huge difference. You end up as a commodity. That's the risk of not picking where you want to be in the market.
It's true, and I mean. Coming back to the idea of, looking at positioning. I mean, if you are a technical leader and you're positioned as that, people will also come to you with their problems and with their kind of needs. While if you are just considered, as you said, the commodity, they just say, okay, I need 10 pieces.
Yeah.
Even though they might actually only need 5. Because they don't understand that they could do much better with something else.
Yes. Spend maybe the same amount of money, but get more out of it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's, I find it to be very interesting to really look into these kind of needs much more. And sometimes it's harder, though, as a marketeer to really understand what is it exactly that the customers are after?
Yes.
Again, I'm thinking about innovation versus what's on the market. Do we need to innovate or not? Where do we go to in the future? So I think as an industrial marketer, you also have to have a vision of what's happening. Yeah. How will the needs develop? I mean, from a railway perspective, there's a lot about sustainability currently when it comes to railway, because railway as such is a very sustainable industry, right?
Yeah.
But then again, talking to customers, it's yes, they all want to be more sustainable, but it's really difficult to actually, I put it right off, get that paid for.
Yes.
So how much value, coming back to understanding the value behind certain trends and certain requirements, and how is the mix done? So I think this is all marketing topics that we as marketers need to help within, for example, product development department, or in sales, even in customer service and some of the other departments, when you think about customer experience. So I keep on bringing new terms in, but I see that this is so much entangled. And as marketeers, we have a very important role to play.
Oh, completely. I think that goes in two directions. Marketers need to be talking to, getting information from customer services, sales, even finance department, etc.
Yeah.
To get the full picture, and also you need to be working with those departments to make sure that they're getting the right messages across. They're talking to the right customers about the right products and the right aspects of those products.
Yeah, where do you put your time as a customer service?
Yeah.
Is it actually, as you said, do I have the right information, the right message that I can give to my customer rather quickly? So I think the idea of marketing, of being that department or that kind of function that actually kind of helps to reach the customer with the right attitude, the right tools, and the right, as you said, messages.
Yes.
And be very aligned. That's the next part. I mean, aligning between the different areas. It's not that easy, talking about lingo as well. I mean, translating things into simplifying. And I mean, I'm not saying that an engineer doesn't have to use the terms when they talk to an engineer. But then again, we are not all engineers. And our customers are not all engineers neither.
No. And even if one of the decision makers is an engineer, quite often it's not just up to them.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's like 7 different functions included in one decision making, something like this, like on average. Was like one of the last studies I saw. So having all the same things prepared for the different functions. So one message translated into the different 7 areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it's understanding the different customer, understanding the customer journey as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, that's why I've been looking at my customer journey. I've actually been doing it for myself.
Okay.
Today. I'm usually doing it for my clients, but I'm actually doing it for. So, but yeah, understanding that whole picture and then thinking about what each type of customer's feeling or the needs they have at that particular point.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you start to get a better picture of what they need to know about, what is going to be of interest to them, and how do you explain that, as you say, in the simplest way possible.
Yeah, and then to create an action. Because one thing is to understand, as you say, but the next thing is, how do you actually trigger an action?
Yes.
With the information or the messages that you're having in the different, I mean, it's a kind of state that they are in. And I mean, there's also a lot of studies about how to actually do that. So I find that very interesting. So do you actually work with like marketing psychology?
Yes, I have. I mean, I've done plenty of study on. I'm actually hoping to do there's a master's offered fairly local to me that's in international marketing and psychology, or customer psychology. And oh my word, I would love to do that. So I've got a relatively amateur understanding at the moment. I've read plenty of books on the combination of marketing and psychology and where it all comes in. And yes, it's so important to understand, at least have a very basic understanding of psychology, and the fact that we think we're very rational beings. So, and I think this is where sometimes technical-minded people think that give the customer the technical information, they will make the right decision because it's an amazing product. but actually we make decisions based on emotions and gut feeling, and then we justify it afterwards with the fact.
Exactly. So yeah, I find that also to be a very interesting field, exactly for the same reason, because that's what I hear as well. But again, I mean, if you understand what are reasons behind, reasons why, and how do you actually help customers to overcome like hurdles and things like that, be really helpful. I mean, that's really for industrial companies so important.
Yes.
Sometimes even more than for consumer, because consumer, it's much more understood that, well, you know, you go on emotion, as you said, and people are very much, you know, I really, this is the new iPhone, so I will get it, of course. When it comes to investments in like industrial companies, it's so much more. We spoke about it just before. You have more people involved. Decisions are very much based on bigger groups of people. So you have to prepare it better. So marketing really has a role to play to help in these preparations. So, I mean, it's nice to be Apple, but who is Apple compared to like, okay, we do wheel set bearings and axle boxes and things like that. And they're very important. But then again, why would you go with us as a company compared to other companies? Yeah. Help me to justify also the decision in understanding I want to work with, for example, my product, my train is the best train in the world. So maybe I want to work with the best company in the world. So really having the best train in the world, to make it very simple.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's a sort of real, and I think that's another thing that makes it quite hard to understand the customer, because you can ask the customer why they buy from you. You can ask the customer what's important about you, but what they don't know really, that they think they know why they've chosen you, but if you dive deeper, you find out that that's not correct, or at least it's not 100% correct. It might be part of the reason.
I think there's many reasons. There's probably not just one reason. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's understanding that, especially if you're want to place yourself in the top range, the highest quality, you've got to do a lot more than just say our product's amazing. You've got to demonstrate that you know the customer, you know their needs, you understand what problems they face, and that you're the expert.
Exactly. And you know, you have also really the people proving it, that they are the experts. So this is another part of, I mean, we talked about branding before, but it's also about the knowledge that you need to brand, and the leadership. You cannot say you're the leader without proving yourself every day.
Yes.
And that doesn't come just because you have this great brand in B2B. So it's both. You have to have a good brand, no doubts about that. But it has to be really justified with the people that are belonging to the brand. So I think the proximity between people driving the brand is much closer as well.
Yes, there's and I've probably brought this up on several videos now, but there's been research that shows that companies that are what they called brand focused, which meant that everyone who knows what the brand proposition is, and understands their place within that, they have profit margins that are twice that of industry standard. I mean, so, and that's I think it's explained to people as well that brand consumer companies generally get this, especially the larger ones. Brand isn't just, you know, a logo, some pretty colors, all of this stuff. It is the core of what the company actually is and stands for the customer.
Yeah.
So if you get that right, a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about almost kind of slots into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So I'm very fortunate that I'm working for an industry that is really important as well,
Yeah.
and can support a brand like ours in a really good way, because it shows we are really good in what we are doing here. We have really strong experts, and we bring it out. So as an industry, we are supporting as well as with the individuals. This is also something that I'm particularly working with the people in the industry to really see how can we work better together. How can you show your customers that you are the one they can count on, that they are eye height to our customers, because who buys really from a brand? You buy from people, as you said before.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And those people need to then therefore represent the brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, brand is a really interesting topic as an industry marketer. Absolutely. And I mean, we talked before about the products. The products are also, coming back to that, important, but more as a vehicle. So when you think about the ideas around what does this product actually do, it does bring performance, for example, or it brings a longer lifetime. So thinking about all the values that the product has, it doesn't really matter the product you're using, but what matters is, well, I actually need the best train. So it needs to run a certain time. I don't want to have any trouble. It needs to be very cost efficient. And this is what you're buying. So how do you market this then? So you don't market the product anymore. You actually market the value.
Yeah. Which almost brings us back full circle to who do you want to market to? Because if that's you're demonstrating that by using your products, it will be the best train. You don't want to be aiming for a market that just goes for the absolute cheapest. They don't care how well the train runs. Using rail as an example, you target the companies that want the best trains.
Yeah, probably. Well, you know, I have a little bit of an advantage here, I have to admit that, because it's a very highly safety regulated company. So certain things you just can't get around to buy a little bit better.
That's also a really important thing to understand. And I imagine that varies greatly from country to country.
Exactly. And that's the other part. I mean, I think that's something where industries also differ, and that the drivers of an industry, they differ. I mean, it's really, really important to have safe trains, because I mean, this is, even if there's countries where safety is less regulated, it is still a very important part that you have certain requirements. Yeah. Because you also have needs, again, coming back to what is the customer needs. If you have to run millions of people in a week, you know, you don't have a choice to say, you know what, if this train doesn't run for 24 hours, we just take the next one. This is not well working, especially when you think about countries where you might think it can be cheaper. But then if you don't run the train, everything breaks down. because sometimes it's the way, like in huge cities, it's the only way to transport. So yes and no, but I mean, we are not the only company on the market.
Of course.
So coming back to the point of how can we really help them? And this is, for example, something, reliability is a huge topic.
Yes.
Because you have to know that you can keep your schedules. And this is something you might be willing to pay for. While in other areas, it's like, you know what, the density is not as high. Maybe it's the freight area where things are more slow. So there might be other things that are of relevance, coming back then also to the target groups. I mean, there is different target groups, even in a specific market like railway. Because, I mean, to start off with, you differentiate between freight and passenger.
Of course, yeah.
And right there, you also understand, I mean, if I have a person on my train, it's a very different thing than having a package of giveaways.
Yes. Yes.
So very simple. If the giveaway sits there for 3 days somewhere in the desert, it might melt or whatever, but it's very different. But coming back, there are still needs, because you have logistical topics. If there's kind of agreed deadlines where you have to deliver something and then you have to pay charges, you might want to think about also reliability more than safety. So again, it differs. And then, I mean, we have the train manufacturer that start kind of build a train based usually on the requirements of a local operator. I mean, in the railway industry, a lot of times they are still governmentally connected, right? In many countries, at least. So there are really clear requirements on things. So the train builder has certain freedom, and maybe it doesn't have freedom. I mean, maybe even the operator says what kind of parts to use. So we also, I mean, as a marketer, I have to understand that who is influencing what kind of decisions, because I think we haven't really spoken about that yet. So,
yeah, I mean, that's true. We mentioned there's more than one person making the decision, but in B2B, sometimes, like you say, it's part of the chain. It's not just, that we potentially government requirements that are easy to find out about, but what's more difficult to find out about is something like the end user has an influence. So in construction, for example, you might target the architects. And they specify something, but what you don't realise is down the line a quantity surveyor is allowed to swap it out for something cheaper.
Yes.
And it's the same thing for any B2B, anything remotely complex. There could be other people influencing the decision that you need to understand. Yes.
So, I mean, we have a great role to play as marketers to really understand who do we market to.
Yeah.
And how do we do that? Because, as you mentioned, the architect has very different kind of prerequisites and ideas in maybe what he wants than the user at the end, who's using the machine or whatever, or the house. So, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of research and a lot of investigation that has to be done. And also, again, looking at what's happening in the future. What are the trends? How do they come together? So it's not just a very easy task. I think it also has become much more complex looking at the web, because people have the tendency to think that they know even more than before, because they get more information. The question is, do they actually know more, or do they have more information that maybe confuses them more?
Not the same thing. Yes, that's not quite the same. Yes, absolutely. It's I guess it's our job to help guide them through that online on our own websites with the navigation and how we lay that out, and the calls to action we use to try and guide them through the customer journey we want to guide them through.
Yeah.
That we know is useful for them. And do you find, talking about trends and what's happening in the future and different, so I guess this is related to different people having different ideas of what's important in the amongst the influencers for the decision. Do you think part of our role is education as well?
Very much so. I'm actually in my organization, I work very closely with our so-called academy, because I think education is key, especially working in a industry that's not as easy, like engineering. I think it's a very, very important part to look at education. And I mean, a lot of companies do webinars these days. I mean, what you're doing here with me, I mean, it's part of your educational program.
Yeah, absolutely.
To help your customer understand certain points that might be underestimated or undervalued.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to really bring out the points and help customers and people inside the company to get them trained. You know, I want to have an informed customer making a decision.
Yes.
So, I mean, if they don't understand why they're choosing us, to a certain extent, of course, I mean, you said it before, some of the subconscious parts, they are not clear, but then again, at least they should understand the difference. And that's only possible if you educate.
Yes, and I think that's before they make a decision as well as afterwards, just generally educating the industry, but also once I think cars are always the example I use with this, but I think it's anything that's complex and talking and bearing in mind with B2B, often it's someone's job could, especially as a big purchase, could potentially be on the line. It's reassuring them they've made the right decision. It's giving them the confidence that yes, okay, and maybe that's often the point, that if someone's bought a car, that's the point they look at all the data sheets and all the information, not before. And I think it's similar in B2B with what we do. We need to, confirm to customers they have made the right decision.
I fully agree. And I mean, that's also helping when you really feed them also updates and helping them to understand, even if things change, they might have made a good decision, or they need to think about doing things and taking the next steps. Coming back to actually customer loyalty and customer retention, I think that's the key to keep on interacting and educating.
Yes.
Because the interaction is just one thing. I mean, if you're shaking hands every half a year, that might be enough if you are having a very close relationship to the salesperson or whatever. But then again, who is able to do that all the time? So, I mean, when it comes to education, you can bring in other parties and you can just bring in content to help to educate, but it's the consistency of confirmation also, that you don't forget the customer.
Yes.
So, I mean, how do you feel when you're buying something and you're like really put a lot of effort in it, and then it's kind of like they don't care?
Yes.
And now I have a question and it takes a week until I get to hear anything. And then it's maybe not even the right thing. I'm much easier if I have had interaction in between, if I had received content, if I had received updates. So yes, I'm a big fan.
And as well as making that customer more loyal and more likely to come back to you, they're more likely to refer you. They're more likely to speak more positively of you. They're more likely to say, yes, you can do a case study using us. So yeah, I think that's very beneficial in multiple ways.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting that you bring it up, because it's, I mean, it's also much cheaper to keep a customer than to keep on getting new customers. But it's also not as easy, I find sometimes. It's a challenge to actually do that and keep customers engaged, because you also have to keep being relevant.
Yes.
And the relevancy, because I mean, what happens a lot is, okay, somebody's bought something, but not so much is happening, especially in engineering companies. So what are the new things that you could talk about? And before sending something that are totally off, how do you actually do it? So, I mean, it sounds easy, but it's actually also a challenge as a marketer to really provide that. So I think that's where you have to do a lot of planning and also understand what is related, and kind of coming back to education, educate that things are related. So not just staying in one area and keep on sending kind of the same stuff. After 3 times, the customer says, okay, yeah, ciao. I don't want to read that anymore. And they click the do not send any more updates here, which you also don't want.
Yes.
So it's really, it is a challenge.
It is. And I think in particular, for these reasons, things have changed. Change has accelerated recently after a certain pandemic. And I think a lot of customers, a lot of companies, especially I feel in sort of industrial and technical sectors, are still sending out exactly the same messages. They haven't re-looked at their brand proposition. What's important to the customer might have changed.
Yeah.
And things are always moving. What's important to a customer today might be different tomorrow. You've always got to keep on top of that.
Yes, exactly. So that's a really good point, to not keeping the outside in perspective. Just because you sold something, it's still about the customer. Yeah, I think it's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the world never stands still.
Yeah, it all sounds so easy. I mean, I spent at least 1 to 2 hours a day doing research.
Yes.
I mean, this is part of a marketer's job, to really understand what's happening. How are things changing? What are the big things? Yeah, I mean, this is something that takes a lot of time, but it's very beneficial, because then you can be relevant and you understand better also how to feed your colleagues. I mean, we haven't really spoken about insights yet, how to create those. So this is also part of my job, to actually find out, based on research, what is it that is changing in the market? How can you talk to a customer? And I think that's a part of, you need to understand the industry to a certain extent, or as you do, ask the right questions and bring people together. Yeah. So, I mean, I see an article and I say, is this actually relevant? So I'm looking for an expert to tell me, is this relevant? And then sometimes they say, no, not at all. It's not something, it's kind of like, yeah, forget it. And sometimes they say, oh, this is really interesting. We didn't know this is happening.
Yes.
So it's also something, coming back to one of the topics we were talking before, to really have the different functions in your networking and bring people together to actually understand these things, and how to create those insights that can go back to the customers in content, and in also customer discussions.
Yes, that reminds me of one thing that happened client side. There was a campaign. It had just been sent to us in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
We're just pushing it out. It was for aggregates and quarries, I think it was, and it fell flat. So I said, well, let's speak to. So I did some research. It was my job to do some research on the industry. Looked into it, spoke to our sales guys who are actually talking to the customers, and they said they're not interested in reliability. I was like, what? Why? Because they're too busy firefighting. They don't have enough man hours to think about these things. Okay, but reliability will help them. Yeah, but we need to change the conversation. Reliability is the secondary message. The first message is, are you wasting man hours?
Yeah, exactly.
If you are, we can help you. That's it's getting to the actual core need of the customer. It might be almost several times removed from the literal benefits that it gives you. It's sort of down the line, it'll help them with X, and X is important to them, not Y.
Yeah. Yes, I fully agree. Yeah.
And it's quite often, if you're talking to all these other functions, they know that, and they don't know that you don't know that. That's why I love getting all these different functions in a room talking to each other, because all this stuff comes out and they really start to understand what's important to the customer, and it's so much easier for them in their individual roles to then communicate to the customer, why us, why our company, why our products.
Yep, that's a nice sum up, Samantha. So I think, yeah, I mean, I really like that. I don't want to add too much more, because I think it's the perfect sum up here.
Brilliant. I agree. Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time. I think we've got some really great information there. So hopefully hopefully if you're in a technical industry, this has given you some food for thought. And hopefully we've convinced you marketing is really important.
Well, Samantha, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And yeah, bye everyone.